Sometimes the smallest whisper can shake the heart of a man who thought he'd seen it all. In the city of Lagos, where wealth shines brighter than compassion, a weary maid whispered the words that would change a billionaire's life forever. This is a story of a mother's sacrifice, of a heart once broken, but rebuilt through kindness. A story of love, redemption, and grace, told in the voice of humanity itself. You're watching Tales by Wealth, where African stories come alive with emotion, truth, and power. Before we begin, take a deep breath, like this video, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from, because somewhere out there, another whisper is waiting to be heard. I just wanted to be with my daughter on Christmas, Ifeoma whispered, her trembling voice barely rising above the hum of the air conditioner. The clock on the wall struck midnight, echoing through the long marble hallway of the Enugu mansion, a house that gleamed like wealth itself. Outside, Lagos buzzed with laughter, fireworks, and music from Christmas Eve parties. But inside these walls, Ifeoma's heart ached with loneliness that money could never cure. She stood barefoot on the cold, polished tiles, her hands shaking as she folded one of Madame Denis's expensive white bedsheets. Through the glass window, she could see lights twinkling from distant streets, families singing, children dancing around Christmas trees. Her phone sat beside the iron pile of clothes, its screen cracked but still glowing softly. A message blinked. "Mama, are you coming home?" Her chest tightened. It was from her 8-year-old daughter, Chidinma, who lived with Ifeoma's aging mother in Enugu. It had been 3 years since she'd spent Christmas with her child. 3 years of broken promises and excuses about work, bus fare, and needing to please her employers. Ifeoma blinked hard, pushing back tears as she whispered to herself, "Just one Christmas, God. Just one Christmas with my daughter." She thought she was alone, but she didn't know that Mr. Chika Denis, her millionaire boss, stood silently near the study door, hearing every fragile word. The house was too quiet for such a night. The walls seemed to breathe wealth, golden curtains, imported furniture, and chandeliers that threw soft light on everything except her heart. She moved from one corner to another, folding, arranging, and checking details for tomorrow's Christmas brunch. It was supposed to be the most glamorous event in Lekki. Senators, business moguls, and church elders would fill this mansion by morning. Madame Denis had left a long list of instructions before going to bed. "Ifeoma, make sure the silverware shines. Not even a single fingerprint. The guests must see perfection." "Yes, madam," Ifeoma had replied, her voice low but steady. She had learned to hide exhaustion, just like she had learned to hide hunger. Now, in the empty hallway, her body begged for rest, but her heart begged for home. Her fingers brushed the necklace Chidinma made her last year, beads strung on a nylon thread, uneven but precious. That little necklace was all she had of her daughter tonight. She walked toward the living room, where the enormous Christmas tree glittered like a trophy. Beneath it sat dozens of wrapped gifts, none of them for her. The smell of cinnamon candles filled the air, mixed with a faint scent of furniture polish. She sighed deeply, the kind of sigh that carries years of pain in one breath. In that moment, Ifeoma didn't realize a man was watching her. Behind the half-closed door of his study, Mr. Denis had paused while searching for a document. He saw a reflection in the polished glass, the maid standing small beneath the giant Christmas tree, whispering words only meant for heaven. "I just wanted to be with my daughter this Christmas," she said again, more to herself than anyone. Something twisted inside him. He had heard countless voices in his life, board meetings, business calls, politicians begging for favors. But this one, this soft whisper, cut through everything. He watched her shoulders shake as she bent to gather laundry. She wiped her face quickly and resumed working, unaware of her invisible audience. For a moment, he saw not a maid but a mother, a woman buried alive by circumstance. Inside the study, Mr. Denis sat heavily in his leather chair. He tried to return to his paperwork, but the words blurred. Memories he thought he'd buried long ago began to claw their way up. He saw flashes of his own mother, bending over a smoky pot in the small kitchen of their old home in ABA. He remembered her cracked hands, her tired eyes, and the way she always said, "Someday, my son, you will lift people out of the place we came from." He had lifted himself, yes, but he had forgotten to lift anyone else. Meanwhile, Ifeoma finished the last set of linens and turned off the hallway lights. She walked to her small room at the back of the house, next to the laundry area, a windowless cubicle barely big enough for her and her single suitcase. She sank onto the bed and pulled out her phone again. "Mama," Chidima's recorded voice played softly. "Teacher said Santa will bring gift to children whose mummies are home. Will Santa find me, Mama?" That broke her. Tears spilled freely this time, her sobs muffled in the pillow. She wished she could hold her daughter, smell her hair, and cook her favorite jollof rice. Instead, she stared at the cracked ceiling and whispered prayer. "God, help me. I'm tired of missing everything that matters." While she drifted into restless sleep, the man upstairs stared out his window at the same moon, his thoughts heavy. Christmas morning arrived before dawn. The mansion came alive with noise, chefs, decorators, caterers, and security guards running in every direction. The gates opened for deliveries, and Ifeoma was already awake, tying her headscarf as she scrubbed the marble floor. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but her smile, that polite servant smile, stayed fixed in place. By 7 a.m., Madame Denis descended the staircase in a long silk robe. "Ifeoma," she barked, "have you arranged the guest rooms? The senator and his wife are coming with their children." "Yes, madam," Ifeoma said quickly. "Make sure the children don't touch my ornaments. Last year one of them broke the angel figurine. Do you remember?" "Yes, madam." "Good. And please, stop looking sad. You make the house look gloomy. It's Christmas, for heaven's sake." "Yes, madam." But inside, Ifeoma felt hollow. Hours passed in a blur. The mansion filled with guests wearing designer clothes and spraying expensive perfume. Christmas music played softly, while laughter echoed across the rooms. Children unwrapped gifts bigger than Ifeoma's entire salary. She served champagne and finger foods with steady hands, pretending she didn't hear the guests talk about their vacations in Dubai or London. By noon, she had barely eaten. She sneaked into the pantry for a glass of water and leaned against the counter to breathe. Her mind drifted again to Chidima. Would her daughter be sitting under the mango tree waiting for a call? Would she still believe Mama was coming home next Christmas? Her chest tightened again. She whispered, "Just one Christmas. Just one chance to make it right." A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Ifeoma?" She turned quickly and froze. It was Mr. Denis himself, dressed in a simple white native attire, without his usual intimidating presence. His tone was calm but serious. "Follow me to the study," he said. Her stomach dropped. Had she done something wrong? Was she being fired on Christmas Day? She followed quietly, clutching the hem of her faded uniform. The study smelled of leather and cologne. He gestured for her to sit. She hesitated. No one sat in this room except family or VIPs. "Sit," he repeated gently. She obeyed, her eyes fixed on her lap. "How long have you worked for my family, Ifeoma?" he asked. 3 years, sir." "And how many times have you been home for Christmas?" Her voice cracked. "None, sir." He leaned back, studying her face, the tired eyes, the small lines that years of overwork had carved. "Last night," he began slowly, "I heard you in the hallway. You said you wanted to be with your daughter this Christmas." Her heart stopped. She looked down, mortified. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know anyone was listening." He waved off her apology. "You weren't wrong to say it. What's wrong is that I never cared enough to ask about your life. I built this house, this business, but somewhere along the way, I forgot what Christmas really means." She stared, unsure what to say. He turned toward the window, watching the guests outside. "My mother used to sell pepper in the market. She worked every day, even on Christmas, so I could go to school. I told myself I'd make her proud, but she died before I could repay her. I promised I'd never forget where I came from, and yet here I am, living in a house full of people I don't even see." He turned back to her, his voice gentler now. "You'll leave for Enugu tomorrow morning. I'll send a driver. You deserve to be with your child." Her eyes widened. "Sir, I can't." "You can. I've already made arrangements. 2 weeks paid leave. No arguments." Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. God bless you." He smiled faintly. "Merry Christmas, Ifeoma." She left the study trembling, barely believing what had happened. The mansion's noise returned around her, but it all felt distant, like a dream. She went straight to her small room, fell to her knees, and cried, this time not from pain, but from gratitude. The next morning, before dawn, a black Toyota Land Cruiser waited at the gate. Ifeoma carried her small bag, her hands shaking. The driver, Mr. Emmanuel, smiled warmly. "Madam Ifeoma, you ready?" "Madam," she laughed softly. No one had called her that before. "Yes, Mr. Emmanuel, I'm ready." In the back seat lay a large gift bag. Emmanuel handed it to her. From Olga. She opened it. Inside were wrapped presents and an envelope with her name. Her hands trembled as she read the note. "For every Christmas you missed. Go home and make memories." The car pulled away from the mansion gates as the early sun lit up Lagos. Tears blurred her vision, but for the first time in years, they were tears of joy. As the city grew smaller in the distance, she whispered, "Thank you, God. You heard me." And somewhere back in that mansion, a millionaire stood by his window, watching the road she'd taken, realizing that perhaps wealth wasn't measured by property or profit, but by the power to heal a heart with kindness. The engine roared softly as the black Toyota Land Cruiser rolled out of the Enugu mansion before sunrise. The city was still half asleep, but inside the car, a single whisper of disbelief escaped the maid's trembling lips. "This can't be real." She pressed her palm to her chest as tears blurred the golden glow of the streetlights sliding across the window. Just a few hours ago, she'd been folding bedsheets in silence. Now she was on her way home to her daughter, after 3 long, aching years. The roads of Lagos were strangely calm at that hour. Only the early Danfo buses and Okada riders were out, hustling to the faint fog of dawn. Ifeoma sat in the back seat, her small bag on her lap, afraid to touch the beautifully wrapped gifts beside her, afraid that if she did, the dream would end. She looked out at the skyline, at the fading towers and billboards, whispering a prayer. "Thank you, Lord. You finally heard me." The driver, Emmanuel, a gentle-faced man in his 50s, glanced at her through the rear-view mirror. "You all right, madam?" he asked softly. She blinked, startled by the word madam. I'm fine. Just still can't believe this." Emmanuel smiled knowingly. "Our Olga is a good man. His heart just needed a reminder." Ifeoma nodded, gripping her bag tighter. "He's kind. I didn't expect someone like him to even notice me." Sometimes, Emmanuel said, his deep voice calm, "God makes people listen when you think no one is listening. Yesterday you were a maid. Today, you're a mother on her way home. That's how fast God moves." The words sank deep. Ifeoma looked outside again as the first rays of sunlight spilled across the city. Lagos was waking up, roadside hawkers setting up trays of oranges and groundnuts, street preachers shouting, "Repent this Christmas," into megaphones, and Kiki drivers arguing over change. The familiar chaos that used to drain her now felt beautiful. She was leaving it behind, at least for now, not to escape but to find something she'd lost, her motherhood. After an hour, the car joined the Lagos-Benin Expressway. Emmanuel turned on the radio. A gospel song floated softly through the speakers. Ifeoma closed her eyes, resting her head against the window as wind whispered through the gaps. She imagined her daughter, Chidinma, asleep on her grandmother's mat, unaware that her mother was finally coming home. A smile broke through her tears. Halfway through the journey, Emmanuel slowed down near a roadside cafe. "Let's stretch small, madam," he said kindly. They stopped beside a wooden canteen with a painted sign that read Mama Grace rice and stew. The air smelled of fried plantain and with smoke. Ifeoma hesitated, clutching her purse. "Come down, madam," Emmanuel encouraged. "You haven't eaten since morning." "I don't want to waste your time," she said shyly. He laughed softly. "You're my assignment today. Time no day finish." They sat at a small wooden table under a palm leaf shade. The cook, an older woman with a wide smile, brought plates of hot jollof rice, fried chicken, and cold malt drinks. The taste hit Ifeoma like a memory. Simple, real, full home. She ate slowly, savoring each bite. "Enugu, the woman asked when she overheard their talk. "That's a long journey. Christmas goes sweet for your side, oh." Ifeoma smiled. "Yes, ma, this one goes sweet past all." As they got back on the road, she gazed at the countryside rolling past. Red soil, palm trees, small houses painted in bright blues and greens. Emmanuel hummed along to the radio, and Ifeoma felt peace settling in her chest for the first time in years. Around midday, her phone rang. The caller ID flashed. "Mama." "Mama," she said breathlessly. Her mother's voice, warm and trembling, came through. "Ifeoma? My daughter, are you really coming?" "Yes, Mama. I'm on the way. I'll be home this evening." A pause. Then came a choked sound. Her mother was crying. Chinik, after 3 years, my child is coming home." Ifeoma pressed the phone to her ear, fighting tears. "How is my baby?" "She's fine. She's helping me prepare for Christmas. She doesn't know you're coming. She thinks you're still working." "Don't tell her yet," Ifeoma whispered. "Let me surprise her." "All right, my daughter. May the road favor you." When the call ended, Ifeoma looked out the window again. The landscape was changing. More trees, more hills. Emmanuel glanced at her reflection in the mirror. "Your mother sounds proud," he said. "She is. She raised me alone after my father died. I think I became her hope. But when life got hard, I left her and my child behind. Every day, I ask God forgive me." Emmanuel smiled gently. "Don't carry guilt when you've been fighting to survive. You didn't abandon them. You were building a future. Now that you can rest, you can love them better." His words stayed with her long after the conversation ended. Hours later, the car entered Benin City, where they stopped for fuel. The streets were alive with traffic. Hawkers waving roasted corn, children selling Christmas hats, music thumping from roadside speakers. Emmanuel bought roasted plantains and shared them. "Eat, madam," he said. "You need strength to surprise your daughter." They both laughed softly. By the time they crossed into Enugu State, the sun was sinking low, painting the sky gold and orange. The hills rose gently in the distance. Ifeoma's hands began to tremble again. "We're close," she whispered. "Yes," Emmanuel said, his tone kind. "About 30 minutes." The closer they got, the faster her heart raced. Every familiar sight, the market gate, the old church by the roadside, the dusty path leading into her mother's neighborhood, flooded her with memories. When Emmanuel finally turned into a narrow lane lined with small bungalows, Ifeoma couldn't hold back her tears. The car stopped in front of a faded blue gate. Children nearby paused their play, staring in awe at the shiny black SUV. The gate swung open, and there stood an older woman in a patterned wrapper and head tie. Her mother. "Mama." "Ifeoma." The moment shattered all restraint. She jumped out of the car, running straight into her mother's arms. They held each other tightly, crying and laughing at the same time. Neighbors began to gather, whispering, pointing at the vehicle, murmuring blessings. "My daughter has come home," her mother said proudly, wiping tears with the edge of her wrapper. "After 3 years, she's home." Emmanuel smiled quietly, unloading the bags. "Olga said I should tell you to rest and enjoy your holiday. He'll handle everything." "This is too much," Ifeoma murmured. He said you've earned it, Emmanuel replied softly. The neighbors clapped, some shouting, God bless your boss, as the driver returned to his car. Before leaving, he pressed a card into her palm. Call me if you need anything, madam. I'm at your service. When the car disappeared down the street, the compound erupted in chatter. Women came to greet her. Ifeoma, you look thinner but younger. God is faithful. We thank God for your journey. But one voice cut through all her mothers. Where's my granddaughter? She's with Auntie Ngozi, the older woman said proudly. They went to buy Christmas meat. Good, Ifeoma whispered. Don't tell her I'm here. I want to see her face. Her mother smiled knowingly. You and your surprises. They entered the small, tidy house. The walls were covered in old family photos and a faded calendar. The smell of palm oil and with smoke filled the air. Ifeoma sank into the wooden chair by the table, her hands trembling from emotion. Everything felt smaller but warmer. This was home. As they talked, she told her mother everything about the whisper, about her boss overhearing, about the unexpected kindness. Her mother listened in silence, her eyes wet. So that's how it happened, she finally said. My daughter, God heard you. Sometimes he uses strange ways. A rich man's ears, a tired maid's whisper, it's all the same to him. They laughed softly, holding hands across the table. Then a horn blared outside. Through the small window, Ifeoma saw a familiar old Camry pull up. Her heart began to race. Mama, she's here. Her mother squeezed her hand. Go and meet your miracle. The gate creaked open. A small girl jumped out of the back seat, her school uniform still on, a half-eaten lollipop in her hand. She was taller now, her legs long, her cheeks fuller, but her eyes, those bright, curious eyes, were the same. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. Then the girl's gaze found her standing in the doorway. She froze. Her little mouth opened. The lollipop fell. Mama? Yes, my love. The girl ran, not walked, ran, across the compound. Sand flied beneath her small shoes, her cry breaking the still air. Mama! Ifeoma dropped to her knees and caught her. The force nearly knocked her backward, but she held tight, sobbing. My baby, my heart, my Christmas gift. The neighbors cheered. Some clapped, others cried. The little girl held her mother's face between her tiny hands, touching her like she wasn't sure she was real. You came? You really came. Yes, my daughter. I'm home. Mama's home. They held each other for what felt like forever. Tears fell freely, laughter mixed with sobs. Even the neighbors standing by the fence wiped their eyes. That night, Ifeoma sat by the small wooden table with her mother and daughter. They ate yam porridge and fried fish, the simple meal tasting like heaven. Her mother hummed to him softly. Chidinma leaned her head on her mother's arm and whispered, Are you staying? Ifeoma kissed her forehead. For 2 whole weeks. The girl smiled sleepily. That's the best Christmas gift in the world. When Chidinma finally fell asleep in her mother's lap, Ifeoma brushed her small braids gently and whispered to herself, This is what I prayed for. This is all I ever wanted. Outside, the night air was cool, filled with distant laughter and the sound of fireworks. The neighbors' children ran with sparklers in the street, shouting Merry Christmas. The stars seemed brighter than they had in years. Inside, Ifeoma closed her eyes and let the peace sink deep. She had no wealth, no mansion, no servants. But for the first time in years, she had something far greater, presence, love, home. As sleep came slowly, she thought about the man who made it possible. A man she once saw only as power and distance, now revealed as human, capable of kindness. Somewhere back in Lagos, he was probably celebrating Christmas surrounded by noise and guests, but she hoped he felt even a fraction of the peace she felt tonight. Her mother's soft voice drifted from the next room. God moves quietly, my daughter. Sometimes a whisper is all he needs to change a life. And Ifeoma, smiling through tears, whispered back, "Amen." The rooster crowed just before dawn, and a thin line of light crept across the cracked ceiling of the small house. Ifeoma stirred on the mat beside her daughter, blinking away sleep. Chidinma had rolled over in her sleep, and now lay with one small arm thrown across her mother's chest. The child's breathing was soft and even, her little fingers clutching the edge of Ifeoma's wrapper. For a long moment, Ifeoma didn't move. She only watched her child sleep, memorizing every detail. The curve of her eyelashes, the small scar near her eyebrow, the steady rhythm of her breathing. She hadn't been this close to her in years. The sound of her heartbeat felt like music. Tears gathered in her eyes, but they were no longer tears of regret. They were tears of peace. She had made it home. For the first time in 3 years, she woke up not to the sound of alarm bells or madams shouting, but to the quiet hum of morning in her mother's compound. Outside, the smell of firewood and frying akra filled the air. Birds sang in the trees. Ifeoma carefully untangled herself from her daughter's hold, kissed her forehead, and stepped into the compound. The air was crisp, carrying that faint scent of red earth after dew. Her mother was already outside, tending to the small coal stove. "You're up early," her mother said with a smile. "I couldn't sleep," Ifeoma admitted, rubbing her arms. "I kept waking up to make sure this wasn't a dream." Her mother laughed softly. "Dream or not, you are home. That's all that matters." They cooked together quietly. Oil hissed in the pan, and smoke rose toward the pale sky. Every small movement felt precious. Ifeoma used to think happiness came from money, from safety, from comfort. But standing there barefoot, flipping plantains beside her aging mother, she realized it came from belonging. When Chidinma woke up, she came running into the kitchen, still in her nightgown, hair messy. "Mama, I dreamed you left again." Ifeoma dropped the ladle and scooped her up. "Ah, God forbid. I'm not going anywhere." The little girl laughed, wrapping her arms tightly around her neck. "Promise?" "Promise." The day passed like a slow song. Ifeoma washed clothes under the mango tree, while Chidinma played with the neighbors' children. Her mother rested in the shade, humming old church hymns. Every few minutes, Ifeoma's eyes found her daughter, just to reassure herself she was real, that she wasn't vanishing back into dreams she'd been living in Lagos. Later that afternoon, they sat together on the veranda eating roasted corn. The sky was heavy with gray clouds, and thunder rumbled somewhere far away. "Mama," Chidinma said suddenly, "at school, other children talk about their mothers come and pick them up. Will you come next time?" Ifeoma's throat tightened. "Yes, my heart. From now on, Mama will be there." The child smiled wide, her missing front tooth making her grin even more beautiful. That night, after Chidinma had fallen asleep, Ifeoma and her mother talked long into the night. The older woman spoke of her younger days, of raising children alone, of faith tested by hardship. "God doesn't forget," she said. "He might delay, but he never denies." Ifeoma listened, her heart swelling with gratitude. She thought of her boss, the man who had listened, really listened, and how that single moment had changed everything. 5 days passed in peace. Each morning, Ifeoma walked Chidinma to school along the dusty road, her hands small and warm inside her own. She'd wait by the roadside afterward, watching until her daughter disappeared into the classroom before heading back home. In the afternoons, they cooked, laughed, and talked about everything she'd missed. School plays, lost teeth, birthdays. Every story stitched them closer. But happiness, as she knew too well, never came without interruption. On the 8th day, just after lunch, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar Lagos number. She frowned, wiping her hands on her wrapper before answering. "Hello?" A deep, familiar voice came through. "Good afternoon, Ifeoma." Her heart skipped. "Good afternoon, sir." There was a small pause. I hope I'm not disturbing you. No, sir, not at all. How is your daughter? She's fine, sir. Very fine. We are happy. I'm glad to hear that. His tone softened. I've been thinking about what we discussed before you left. Ifeoma's breath caught. Sir, about your situation, he continued. The distance, the strain. It isn't right that you should have to live far from your child just to survive. Her fingers gripped the phone tighter. I've been speaking with my branch office in Enugu, he went on. It's small, about 20 staff. They need someone reliable to manage domestic coordination, cleaning, supplies, office care. It's a proper employment position, not live-in service. You'd work weekdays, return home every evening. The salary will be the same as what you earned in Lagos. If you're interested, the job is yours. The world seemed to tilt. She sat down heavily on the wooden chair, her knees weak. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say yes, he said simply. Tears welled in her eyes. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. He chuckled softly. You don't have to thank me. Just make it count. Be with your daughter. When the call ended, she sat there staring at the phone, her heart pounding. Her mother came rushing out from the kitchen. What happened? Ifeoma looked up, tears spilling freely now. Mama, he offered me a job here. In Enugu, same pay. I'll be with my daughter every day. For a second, her mother didn't speak. Then she raised her hands to the sky. Jehovah, you do not sleep. They hugged, laughing and crying at once. That evening, they prepared a small feast, yam porridge and pepper soup. Chidinma danced around the kitchen when she heard the news. You're not going back to Lagos? Ever? Ifeoma knelt and cupped her daughter's face. No, my love. Mama's home for good. The girl squealed, hugging her tight. Best news ever. The following days passed in a blur of joy and planning. Ifeoma visited the office with Emmanuel, who had driven back from Lagos on the millionaire's instruction. The Enugu branch was smaller, quieter, with friendly staff. The manager, a graceful woman named Adiz, welcomed her warmly. Our boss speaks highly of you, she said. He said you're one of the most dedicated people he's met. Ifeoma felt her cheeks heat. I'm just grateful for the opportunity. Gratitude is good, Adiz said, smiling. But don't forget you've earned this. When she got home that evening, Chidinma ran into her arms shouting, How's work, Mama? The words hit her heart like music. Later, after dinner, Ifeoma sat outside under the stars. Crickets chirped. Her mother hummed softly inside. She thought about her life, how one whispered prayer in a mansion hallway had rippled into all this. It still felt unreal. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the gate. When she opened it, a young delivery man stood holding a box wrapped in golden paper. Delivery for Madam Ifeoma, he said. Madam? She blinked in confusion. Yes, Ma. From Lagos. Her hands trembled as she took the box. Inside, she found a card with familiar handwriting. For your daughter's first school day with you by her side. Keep shining. C.A. Beneath it lay a brand-new backpack filled with books, pencils, and a small tablet. Ifeoma sat on a veranda, holding the gift to her chest, tears streaming silently. Her mother stepped out, wiping her hands. Another blessing? Yes, Mama, she whispered. Another one. That night, as rain began to fall softly outside, she lay awake beside her sleeping daughter, listening to the rhythm of the drops on the roof. Every sound was a reminder of how far she'd come. The woman who once whispered to the empty air now had a home full of laughter. In Lagos, hundreds of kilometers away, the millionaire sat by his window, watching the same rain fall on the city. His wife was asleep in another room, his children scattered abroad, yet his mind was peaceful. He imagined a maid he once barely noticed, now smiling in a small Enugu home, and for the first time in years, he felt something pure contentment. He picked up his phone, scrolled her number, and typed a message. Merry Christmas again. You reminded me what it means. Then he set the phone down and whispered, Thank you, Ifeoma. Back in Enugu, the rain slowed to a drizzle. Ifeoma turned in her sleep and reached for her daughter's hand. Even in dreams, she smiled. The season had brought her not gifts of gold or silver, but something infinitely richer. The miracle of being seen, heard, and loved. The sun had barely risen when the sound of birds echoed across the compound. Ifeoma stood outside the small bungalow, breathing in the cool Enugu morning. The scent of dew and wet soil filled her lungs. Children's laughter drifted from the road, where Chidinma played with the neighbors. It was a sound she had missed for years, the kind of laughter that softened every burden she'd ever carried. She tied her wrapper tighter and looked toward the small patch of garden behind the house where her mother was plucking vegetables. "Mama," she called gently, "you'll strain your back." The older woman chuckled without looking up. "Let me strain it. I've been idle for too long. My hands miss the soil." Ifeoma smiled. Her heart was full. For once, life wasn't rushing her. It was holding her gently, as if the world had decided she'd suffered enough. Today was her first official day at the Enugu branch of the company, the new job that had come like an answered prayer. She had barely slept all night, nerves twisting in her stomach, but as she looked at her daughter playing in the dust with a stick and a tin can, she knew why she had to try. "Mama," she said softly, "can you walk her to school today? I want to get to the office early." "Go," her mother replied. "We'll be fine. Your child already knows you're here." That's the biggest gift she needed. Ifeoma dressed carefully in the clothes she bought from the market with part of her bonus, an iron navy blue blouse and a long black skirt. She brushed her cornrows neatly and looked at her reflection in a cracked mirror. For the first time, she saw a professional, not a maid. She smiled nervously. When she arrived at the office, her palms were sweaty. The building wasn't huge, 3 floors, clean and modern, with glass doors that reflected the morning sun. The company's name was printed boldly across the wall, a Denis Group, Enugu branch. A security guard greeted her with a smile. "Good morning, madam." She blinked. "Madam?" He nodded. "Yes, madam. You're the new supervisor, right? Welcome." The word supervisor hit her chest like a gentle wave. She had never been called that before. Inside, the air smelled of fresh paint and coffee. Staff members moved around briskly, chatting quietly. A tall, elegant woman in her late 30s approached with a bright smile. "You must be Ifeoma," she said. "I'm Adiz, the branch manager. Our boss spoke highly of you." Ifeoma lowered her head respectfully. "Good morning, Ma. I'm very grateful for this opportunity." Adiz laughed softly. "Don't sound so frightened. You're one of us now. Come, let me show you around." The tour was quick but thorough. There was a small cleaning crew, an administrative section, and an event coordination office. Adiz explained her role clearly, organizing office maintenance, keeping records, assisting with staff events, ensuring everything ran smoothly. By noon, Ifeoma was already learning computer basics from one of the younger staff. It was intimidating at first, but the girl encouraged her gently. "Don't worry, Auntie. You'll get it soon." Every hour felt like progress. Each click of the keyboard was a victory. When she returned home that evening, Chidinma came running, arms wide. Mama, how was work?" Ifeoma scooped her up, laughing. "Work was good, my heart. Mama is learning new things." Her mother appeared at the door, wiping her hands. "You're glowing, Ifeoma. Your father would have been proud." They ate together that night. Simple rice and beans, laughter filling the small room. Ifeoma told him about her day, about the kind people at the office, about Adiz's kindness. Her mother listened with shining eyes. "See how God works. That man in Lagos, God used him to lift your story." Ifeoma nodded. "Yes, Mama. Sometimes all it takes is one person listening." Days turned into weeks, and Ifeoma settled into her new life. She grew confident with each task. The staff respected her kindness and diligence. She was no longer invisible. Every morning, she walked her daughter to school, holding her hand proudly. Every evening, she came home to stories, laughter, and warmth. Her salary came right on time, enough to pay Chidimma's school fees, buy medicine for her mother, and even save a little. The roof no longer leaked after the rainy season. She replaced the broken radio. Small changes, but they made the house feel alive again. Then one hot afternoon, as she was reviewing a supply list at work, her phone buzzed. The screen flashed a name she hadn't seen in months, Mrs. Enugu. Her heart skipped. For a moment, she considered ignoring it, but curiosity won. She stepped outside to answer. "Good afternoon, Ma," she said softly. The familiar, sharp voice came through. "Ifeoma, so it's true. You didn't come back to Lagos." Ifeoma swallowed hard. "Yes, Ma. I accepted the new position here in Enugu. Who gave you permission to transfer?" The woman's tone was icy. "Your husband arranged it, Ma." Silence followed for a beat. Then came a cold laugh. "Ah, I see. My husband and his sudden kindness. I suppose he's saving the world one maid at a time. Ma, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I just wanted to be near my daughter." "Well, enjoy it while it lasts," the woman snapped. "His charity doesn't last forever. When he tires of his sane act, don't come crawling back to me." The line went dead. Ifeoma stood frozen. Phone still pressed her ear. The sting of those words was sharp, but it faded quickly. For the first time in years, she didn't feel fear. She felt strength. She whispered quietly to herself, "I'm not crawling back anywhere." That evening, she told her mother what had happened. The older woman nodded calmly. Let her say what she wants. People who live in palaces sometimes forget that humility builds better homes than marble. Ifeoma smiled weakly. "It just reminded me of the life I left behind. The shouting, the long hours, the loneliness. I don't ever want to go back there, Mama." "You won't," her mother said firmly. "You're building something new now. Keep walking forward." That night, as they sat outside watching the stars, Chidimma lay across her mother's lap. The child pointed at the sky. "Mama, which star is yours?" Ifeoma smiled softly. "Maybe that one," she said, pointing to the brightest. "It shines even when the clouds try to cover it." The girl giggled. "Then I'll wish on it every night." The air smelled of roasted maize and damp soil. Neighbors laughed in the distance. Ifeoma closed her eyes and let the peace settle over her. A week later, a courier arrived at her office with another package. Inside was a small note written in elegant handwriting. "Keep going. Don't let anyone dim your light." There was no signature, but she didn't need one. She knew. That evening, she took Chidimma out for suya by the roadside. The two of them sat on a bench, laughing as the vendor fanned the fire. The child's laughter rang louder than the cars passing by. "Mama," Chidimma said, mouth full, "when I grow up, I want to buy you a big house." Ifeoma laughed. "This small one is enough for me." "No, Mama," she said seriously, "a big one with lights and everything. But I'll still cook for you myself." Her mother smiled through tears. "Just be happy, my heart. That's all I want." The wind blew softly, carrying the smell of spice and smoke. The world was imperfect, but in that moment, Ifeoma realized she had everything that mattered: peace, family, and purpose. Later that night, she sat on the veranda, the lamp casting gentle light over her face. She took out her phone and stared at the last message she'd received. "Don't let anyone dim your light." She whispered into the night, "I won't." Somewhere in Lagos, the man who had written those words sat alone in his massive living room, the sound of silence heavy around him. His wife's bitterness had grown louder, his children's distance colder, but he wasn't regretful. He'd seen a transformation that reminded him what life truly meant. He poured himself a glass of water and whispered, Ifeoma, keep shining. And miles away, under the Enugu stars, she did. The Monday sun rose warm and gold over Enugu, its rays spilling to the curtains and waking Ifeoma with soft light. She stretched on her narrow bed, feeling an unfamiliar kind of energy, peace mixed with purpose. Her daughter's light snore drifted from the other side of the room, and the small radio in the corner hummed a Christmas hymn that made the air feel holy. She dressed quietly, choosing a freshly ironed blouse and long black skirt, her hair still in neat cornrow braids. Her reflection in the cracked mirror smiled back at her. She was no longer the woman who lived in silence under someone else's roof. She was a working mother now, building a life with her own hands. Outside, her mother was already sweeping the compound. "Good morning, my daughter," she said with a proud smile. "Morning, Mama." "Chidimma's uniform is ready. I washed it myself," the older woman said, lifting it off the line. "Your child," told the neighbors her mother, "is a big madam in the office now." Ifeoma laughed softly. "Ah," she exaggerates. "I'm still learning every day." Her mother shook her head. "Learning or not, God has done it for us." The morning moved like music. Steam from pap and accra rising in the kitchen, Chidimma giggling while her grandmother fixed her ribbons, and the sound of roosters announcing another day of possibility. When they finished breakfast, Ifeoma walked her daughter to school, holding her tiny hand down the red, dusty road. "Mama," Chidimma asked, skipping beside her, "you think I can visit your office one day?" "Of course," Ifeoma said, squeezing her hand. "But you'll have to behave like a big girl." "I will. I'll sit quietly and help you arrange papers," the girl promised proudly. They both laughed. It was the kind of laughter that healed. At the office, Ifeoma's days had grown busier, managing cleaners, handling deliveries, keeping supply lists. She learned how to type letters and file reports. Her boss, Adiz, often stopped by to praise her progress. "You learn fast, Ifeoma. Keep it up," she'd say. The other staff admired her humility and calm. She treated everyone, from guards to accountants, with the same respect. Some even started calling her Auntie Ifeoma. By late afternoon, she'd already earned a reputation for neatness and efficiency. She stayed late only when necessary, always hurrying home before sunset to cook, to listen to Chidimma's school stories, and to share a quiet meal with her mother. It was a rhythm of peace, a life built from small miracles. Then, one Thursday, something unexpected happened. Ifeoma was arranging cleaning supplies when Adiz walked in holding her phone. "Ifeoma, the head office just called," she said. "The chairman himself, Mr. Denis, will be visiting Enugu next week." For a moment, Ifeoma froze. Her hands trembled around the duster she held. "The chairman? Coming here?" "Yes," Adiz said, smiling. "He'll review our branch and meet the staff. Don't look so scared, it's good news." Ifeoma forced a nod. "Yes, Ma, of course." But her heart pounded wildly. She hadn't seen him since the morning she left Lagos in that black SUV. What would she even say? "Thank you again? God bless you forever?" For days, she couldn't stop thinking about it. At night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling while rain tapped the zinc roof. Her mother noticed a change. "You've been quiet," she said one evening. "What's troubling you?" "Mama, he's coming, my former boss, the one who sent me home." Her mother looked thoughtful. "Then you'll thank him again. God used him for us. Let him see how his kindness grew fruit." When the day finally came, Ifeoma dressed with trembling hands. She chose her neatest outfit, a sky blue blouse and long black skirt, and tied her hair back with a simple ribbon. Her daughter hugged her before she left. "Mama, tell your chairman thank you from me," the girl said innocently. The office buzzed with excitement. Staff polished every surface, arranged files neatly, and practiced their greetings. Around noon, a convoy of 2 black SUVs arrived. Security men stepped out first, followed by Mr. Chikadini himself, the millionaire whose one act of listening had rewritten her life. He looked different in daylight, simpler, He wore a white agbada, no gold watch, no arrogance, just quiet confidence. When his eyes met Ifeoma's across the room, a flicker of recognition passed between them. He smiled slightly. "Good afternoon, everyone," he greeted. His voice filled the space, calm, commanding, but kind. He shook hands with the D's, toured the offices, asked about progress, and complimented their orderliness. Then he turned to Ifeoma. "You're settling well?" Her throat felt tight. "Yes, sir. Thank you for everything." He nodded. "You've done well. I'm proud of what I'm seeing here." The staff glanced at each other, whispering. Most didn't know the full story, but they could sense something deeper in his tone, a quiet respect. After the meeting, Adiz invited him to her office for refreshments. As he was leaving, he paused by Ifeoma's desk. "Can I speak with you outside for a moment?" She followed him to the corridor overlooking the courtyard. The air smelled of dust and diesel. "I've been meaning to check on you," he said gently. "How is your mother? And your daughter?" "They're both fine, sir. Very fine. We're all doing well." He nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "Good. That makes me happy." For a moment, silence hung between them, the kind of silence filled with gratitude words could never capture. "Sir," she said softly, "you don't know what your kindness did for us. My daughter sleeps without fear now. My mother laughs again. You changed our lives." He looked away briefly, his jaw tightening. "Maybe you changed mine too," he said quietly. "I had forgotten how it feels to see people as people, not positions. You reminded me." Her eyes glistened. "God bless you, sir." He smiled, then turned to go. "Keep working hard. There's more ahead." That evening, Ifeoma went home glowing. Her mother noticed it immediately. "You've seen him, haven't you?" "Yes, Mama," she said, smiling. "He's still the same, humble, kind." Her mother nodded knowingly. Good hearts don't rust. They only get buried until something pure digs them out. Days passed, and the memory of that meeting stayed with her. But life, as always, brought tests along with blessings. A week later, her mother fell ill, a fever that refused to break. The clinic said she needed rest and proper medicine. Ifeoma spent her savings on drugs, but worry gnawed at her. One afternoon, while sitting beside her mother's bed, she received a message. "Heard about your mother's health. Don't worry. Help is on the way. CA." 2 hours later, a delivery van arrived with groceries, medicine, and even a small cash envelope labeled "For Mama's Care." Ifeoma pressed a note to her chest, whispering through tears, "God bless him." Her mother, weak but smiling, said, "You see, when light touches water, it keeps reflecting. That man's kindness keeps reflecting through you. Pass it on one day." "I will, Mama," she whispered. As her mother recovered, Ifeoma found herself drawn deeper into community life. She began organizing small cleaning groups for neighborhood widows, helping them earn little stipends. The same patience and discipline she'd learned in Lagos became her strength here. People started calling her Madam Hope. One Sunday afternoon, as she and her daughter walked back from church, Chidima pointed at a poster by the roadside, a photo of a smiling woman under bold letters reading Women Empowerment Conference, sponsored by the Enugu group. "Mama, that's your office," the girl shouted excitedly. "Yes," Ifeoma said, surprised. "I didn't even know about this." 2 days later, Adiz announced in the office, "The chairman wants someone from our branch to speak briefly at the event. Someone who represents growth and perseverance." "Ifeoma," he specifically mentioned your name. Her heart nearly stopped. "Me? Speak." "Yes," Adiz said, smiling. "You'll tell your story, short and honest. Don't worry, you'll do well." That night, Ifeoma sat on her veranda staring at the stars, rehearsing lines in her head. Her mother listened proudly. "Tell him the truth," she said. "Tell him it was not pity that saved you. It was listening." The day of the event arrived quickly. The hall was filled with women, market traders, office workers, students. Banners fluttered, cameras flashed. When Ifeoma stepped on the small stage, her knees trembled, but the moment she saw her daughter waving from the front row, courage settled inside her. She took the microphone and said simply, "I was a maid who once whispered to herself because she thought no one cared. But someone listened, and that listening changed everything. I learned that no matter who you are, your voice matters. Don't stop speaking your truth, because someone out there is meant to hear it." The hall erupted in applause. Even the chairman, seated at the front, nodded proudly. When she finished, she returned to her seat beside her daughter, shaking. "How did I do?" she whispered. Chidinma grinned. "You were amazing, Mama." Later, as people congratulated her, Mr. Denis approached quietly. "You spoke from your soul," he said. "You reminded everyone, even me, that compassion is not weakness." "Thank you, sir," she said, bowing slightly. "Keep using your voice, Ifeoma. The world needs it." That evening, back home, her mother waited with a pot of soup on the stove. "How was it?" "It was perfect, Mama," she said softly. "They listened." Her mother smiled. "See?" The whisper became a voice. As the night grew still, Ifeoma watched her daughter sleep peacefully under the flickering light of a kerosene lamp. She thought about everything. The mansion in Lagos, the loneliness of those long nights, the whisper that started it all. Now, that same whisper had turned into something greater, a testimony. She closed her eyes, whispering one more prayer into the dark. "Thank you, Lord, for teaching me that no matter how small the voice, you can make it echo." Outside, the stars shimmered over Enugu, and somewhere in Lagos, the millionaire who had once stood in silence listening to a maid's sorrow looked out his window at the same stars, smiling faintly, whispering a prayer of his own. The harmattan wind had returned to Enugu, dry and cool, carrying with it the scent of dust and roasted corn from nearby stalls. Ifeoma stood at the balcony of the Enugu office, looking out at the city skyline that shimmered under the pale December sun. It had been nearly a year since her life had changed, a year since the whispered prayer that brought her home. From the corridor below, laughter drifted upward, the sound of staff preparing for the company's end-of-year event. Adiz, her manager, called from inside the office. "Ifeoma, we'll need your help arranging the chairs and food service. The chairman is joining us by evening." At the sound of that title, chairman, Ifeoma's heart skipped. It had been months since his last visit. She'd spoken with him only once over the phone when he congratulated her for her empowerment speech. Now he was coming again, not as the distant billionaire of Lagos, but as someone whose presence always seemed to make the air feel heavier with meaning. "Yes, Ma, I'll handle it," she said quickly, adjusting her wrapper and heading downstairs. By mid-afternoon, the small event hall was transformed. Bright banners, balloons, and a table lined with gifts. Staff hurried in laughter and excitement, sharing jokes and posing for photos. Ifeoma worked quietly, ensuring every detail was perfect. As she arranged flower vases at the front table, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Chidinma's school teacher. "Your daughter has been selected for the Christmas play. She'll play the lead angel. She says she wants her mother to sit in the front row." A proud smile curved across her lips. "Ah, my little angel," she whispered. By 6 p.m., cars began to arrive. The familiar black SUV parked first, and when the chairman stepped out, heads turned. He looked simple this time. No agbada, no entourage, just a clean white shirt, dark trousers, and a calmness that made him seem less like a billionaire and more like a man rediscovering life. "Good evening, sir," Adiz greeted warmly. "Good evening, everyone," he replied, shaking hands with staff, smiling genuinely. When his eyes found Ifeoma near the stage, the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. She bowed politely, her cheeks warming. The program began with speeches and laughter. Adiz gave a brief address, thanking the chairman for his leadership and announcing a surprise recognition segment. "This next award," she said, smiling toward the audience, goes to someone whose hard work, kindness, and humility have transformed not just our office, but lives around her. She started here only months ago, but her story has inspired many. Ifeoma's eyes widened when she heard her name, Mrs. Ifeoma Okafor. The applause was thunderous. She rose slowly, her hands trembling as she walked to front. Adiz handed her a golden plaque engraved Excellence in Service and Courage Award. The chairman himself stood and joined in the applause, his smile proud and soft. When she reached him, he said quietly, "You've earned this." Her voice broke slightly as she spoke into the microphone. I don't know what to say. I just thank God for remembering me when I thought he'd forgotten." Her eyes met the chairman's briefly, and in that look was a weight of everything unspoken between them. Gratitude, respect, and something deeper neither dared to name. After the ceremony, people crowded around to congratulate her. When the hall began to empty, the chairman approached again. "You did well," he said. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. He glanced around at the remaining staff before lowering his voice. "Would you walk with me outside?" The evening air was cool, filled with city lights and distant music. They walked side by side to the company garden. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, he said, "I've been following your progress. The branch has grown under your care. Adiz said staff morale is better than ever. I just try to do my part, sir." He nodded. "And you've done it beautifully." His tone softened. "I didn't tell you this before, but after I heard you speak at that conference, I made some changes in my company. We now offer flexible working hours for mothers. You inspired that." Her breath caught. "I inspired that?" "Yes," he said simply. "Your story reminded me that people aren't machines. They're families, dreams, and sacrifices. You made me see that." She looked away, tears stinging her eyes. "Thank you, sir." He smiled faintly. "Don't thank me, Ifeoma. You reminded me what leadership really means." A gentle silence settled between them, broken only by the hum of street sounds. Then, unexpectedly, he sighed. "I filed for divorce 3 months ago." Her eyes widened. "Oh, I'm sorry, sir." He shook his head. "Don't be. It was long overdue. We lived together, but apart for years. The children are grown. It's time for honesty." He looked out toward the city skyline. "Funny, isn't it? I used to think success meant building walls high enough that pain couldn't reach me. But all those walls did was keep love out." Ifeoma's heart ached at the quiet sadness in his voice. "Maybe sometimes we need to break walls to build bridges," she said softly. He turned, meeting her eyes, his expression unreadable. "Maybe—" A voice called from the hall, breaking the moment. "Sir, they're ready for the group photo." He nodded and began to walk back. But before leaving, he said, "You're stronger than you think, Ifeoma. Don't ever doubt that." That night, as she lay beside her sleeping daughter, his words replayed in her mind. She wondered if he knew how much they meant. Days passed quickly after that. Her mother's health continued to improve. The office celebrated the holidays with food, laughter, and dancing. And when Christmas Eve arrived again, 1 full year after that fateful night in Lagos, Ifeoma found herself standing by the window, watching fireworks from a distance. Chidinma ran in wearing a white dress with gold ribbons. "Mama, Grandma says the jollof is ready." Ifeoma laughed, turning away from a window. "Let's go before she finishes it all." They gathered around the small table, sharing food and laughter. It wasn't a mansion feast, but it was full of love. Later that evening, as Chidinma slept and her mother hummed softly, Ifeoma's phone buzzed. A message appeared. "Merry Christmas, Ifeoma. Thank you for reminding me what the season means." "Sie." Her heart warmed. She typed back slowly. "Merry Christmas, sir. Thank you for listening that night." She set the phone aside, tears shining in her eyes. Outside, fireworks bloomed across the Enugu sky, painting the dark in colors of hope. The next morning, She and Chidinma walked to church hand in hand. The choir sang softly as she bowed her head in prayer. "Thank you, Lord," she whispered. "You turned my whisper into a testimony." As they left the church, a light breeze brushed her face. She looked up and smiled at the sky. Somewhere, perhaps far away in Lagos, another heart whispered the same prayer of gratitude. And for the first time in her life, Ifeoma didn't feel like a maid or a survivor. She felt like a woman reborn. The new year dawned bright and cool over Enugu. Church bells rang in the distance, and the first sunrise of January poured gold over rooftops washed clean by the night's rain. Ifeoma stood in her small yard, her wrapper tied tightly around her waist, staring at the sky. Beside her, Chidinma clutched a sparkler, giggling as it fizzed in the morning air. "Mama, it's sparkling like stars," the little girl laughed. "Yes, my heart." Ifeoma smiled softly. "That's how our year will be, bright and full of hope." Her mother stepped out of the kitchen, leaning on the doorframe. "Hope is good," she said, "but remember, hope grows only when water will work." Ifeoma nodded. "Don't worry, Mama. This year, we'll work and pray even harder." That afternoon, they attended a Thanksgiving service at church. Ifeoma sat beside her mother and daughter, tears filling her eyes as the choir sang, "You made a way when our backs were against the wall." She thought about the year before, the mansion in Lagos, the loneliness, the whisper in the hallway, and the path that had led her home. Her heart overflowed with gratitude. When they returned home, she found a small package waiting at the gate. It was wrapped neatly in brown paper with her name written in careful handwriting. Inside was a framed photograph, one taken at the company's award ceremony. In the photo, she stood on stage holding her plaque, smiling shyly while the chairman clapped behind her. Beneath it, a note read, "You are a reminder that grace can be found in humility." "Sie." She held a frame to her chest, whispering, "Thank you, God, for everything you've done." The following weeks passed in a rhythm of quiet joy. The office reopened after the holidays, and Adiz returned from a business trip with good news. "Ifeoma, the board approved new projects," she announced. "The chairman wants you to handle logistics for the Enugu expansion." Ifeoma's mouth fell open. "Me, Ma?" "Yes, you've proven yourself trustworthy." Adiz smiled. "He recommended you personally." When she told her mother that night, the older woman clasped her hands in prayer. "You see, your faith keeps moving mountains." The project was big, a construction site for a new regional warehouse. It meant managing supplies, liaising with contractors, and keeping records. It was overwhelming at first, but Ifeoma's diligence soon impressed everyone. She worked long hours, but always came home in time to tuck Chidinma into bed. The child would wait at the window every evening, shouting "Mama's home" the moment she saw her coming down the street. Months rolled by, and by mid-year, the new building stood tall, clean, modern, efficient. On the day of inspection, the chairman arrived quietly, without convoy or cameras. When he saw Ifeoma overseeing the final cleaning, he smiled. "You've done well again," he said. She turned, surprised but happy. "Thank you, sir. It was a team effort." "You lead by example," he replied. "That's rare." They walked through the building together. The scent of new paint filled the air, and sunlight streamed through large glass windows. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "when I first met you, I saw a woman weighed down by life. Now I see strength. You've built something beautiful." Her eyes softened. "You helped me remember who I was, sir." He paused, studying her quietly. "And you helped me remember who I wanted to be." Silence fell between them, heavy but peaceful. He handed her a sealed envelope. "This is for you." Inside was an official letter. "Promotion, Regional Operations Coordinator." Her hands shook. "Sir, I don't know what to say." He smiled. "Say yes." "Yes," she breathed, tears glistening in her eyes. That night, they celebrated at home with laughter and music. Her mother danced in the living room, wrapper tied high. and Chidinma clapped to the rhythm. "Mama's a big madam now," the girl shouted. Ifeoma laughed, lifting her in her arms. "No, my heart. Mama's just blessed." Weeks later, as she settled into her new role, she received another message from the chairman. "I'll be visiting Enugu again soon. There's something important I'd like to discuss with you and your mother." Her heart fluttered with curiosity. When he arrived 2 days later, he came alone, dressed simply in a cream shirt and slacks. He greeted her family warmly, bowing slightly to her mother. "Mama, it's an honor to see you again," he said. Her mother smiled, her gray eyes sharp and kind. "The honor is ours. You're the man God used to lift my daughter." He laughed lightly. "I think she lifted me too." They sat around the small table as Ifeoma served palm wine and pepper soup. The atmosphere was easy, almost like family. After a while, he turned serious. "Mama, Ifeoma, I wanted to talk about something personal." They exchanged glances. He took a breath. "I'm starting a foundation, one that helps working mothers and widows gain employment and childcare support. I want you both involved. Mama, your wisdom. Ifeoma, your experience. You've lived what we're trying to fix." Ifeoma's mouth fell open. "Me, sir? But I don't know anything about foundations." "You know about struggle and perseverance," he said gently. "That's enough. I'll handle the paperwork. You handle the people." Her mother nodded, tears welling. "This is God's work." That night, after he left, Ifeoma sat on the veranda staring at the stars. "Mama," she said softly, "why does it feel like our lives are changing faster than I can keep up?" Her mother smiled. "Because when God finally answers a prayer, he repays all the years of waiting at once." The next few months became a whirlwind. Together with the D's and the chairman, Ifeoma helped launch the Grace and Light Foundation. They visited villages, offered training programs, and created support groups for women like her, mothers, housekeepers, vendors, women who had been forgotten by society. Everywhere she went, people listened to her story in awe. Reporters wrote articles. One headline read, "From Maid to Mentor, the woman who turned a whisper into hope." But fame didn't change her. She still walked her daughter to school every morning, still cooked dinner with her mother, still prayed quietly every night. One evening, as the foundation hosted its first anniversary dinner, the chairman asked Ifeoma to give a short speech. She stood at the podium, hands trembling, eyes bright with emotion. "When I whispered that I just wanted to be with my daughter on Christmas," she said, voice steady, "I never imagined those words would travel this far. I was just a mother desperate to hold her child. But someone listened, and that listening became a bridge that lifted us both." She looked at the man who had once been her employer. "To everyone here, never underestimate kindness. You may not change the world, but you can change someone's world. And that's enough." Applause filled the room. The chairman's eyes glistened. For a moment, they simply stared at each other across the crowd. Two lives forever intertwined by a single act of compassion. That night, back at home, her daughter crawled into her lap, sleepily whispering, "Mama, I'm proud of you." Ifeoma kissed her forehead. "Mama's proud of you too, my heart. You're the reason everything changed." As the child drifted to sleep, Ifeoma gazed out at the Enugu night, the city lights twinkling like stars, and whispered, "Thank you, Lord." My whisper became a light for others. Miles away, in Lagos, the chairman stood on his balcony overlooking the city skyline. He scrolled through his phone, stopping at a picture from the foundation's event. Ifeoma smiling on stage, radiant and strong. He typed one final message. "You once said you only wanted to be with your daughter. I'm glad you found more than that. You found purpose. Merry Christmas again, Ifeoma." She read it that night, smiling through tears. Then she typed her reply, "And you found your heart again. Thank you for listening." The stars above Enugu shimmered brighter that night, as if heaven itself was listening too. By the time the second year rolled in, Ifeoma's name had become known across Enugu, not as a celebrity, but as a story people whispered about with admiration. "That's the woman who used to be a maid," people would say softly in market corners. "The one the billionaire helped." She runs the Grace and Light Foundation now. At first, the attention unsettled her. She wasn't used to being seen, to being praised. She still woke before dawn, swept her compound, cooked for her mother, and walked her daughter to school every morning. Fame hadn't changed her rhythm, but it had changed how others saw her. "Mama, people greet you differently now," Chidinma said one morning as they walked to school. "They call you Madam Ifeoma." Ifeoma chuckled. "Let them call me whatever they want. As long as I'm still your mother, that's enough." The little girl giggled, squeezing her mother's hand. At the office, the foundation was growing faster than anyone expected. Women from nearby states came seeking help: widows, single mothers, housemaids, and market sellers. Ifeoma spent her days listening, guiding, and connecting them to job programs or small loans. She spoke gently but firmly, reminding them of what she had once needed to hear. "You are not your suffering. You are more than what you lost." Her manager, Adiz, had joined the foundation part-time, helping with planning and records. "You have a gift," she told Ifeoma one afternoon as they reviewed proposals. "You don't just manage this place. You breathe life into it." Ifeoma smiled shyly. "I just do what I can." That same week, the chairman returned from an overseas business trip. The foundation's board members gathered for a dinner in Lagos, and though she preferred to stay out of the spotlight, he insisted she attend. "You're the heart of this work," he said over the phone. "It won't feel complete without you there." The journey to Lagos filled her with mixed emotions. It was a city she had once served in silence, the place where her lowest moment had become the beginning of her rise. As the bus entered the city at sunset, skyscrapers glittered against the orange sky, and a familiar hum of traffic carried memories of long nights in the Okonkwo mansion. At the hotel where the meeting was held, she felt out of place among the wealthy guests in suits and evening gowns. Her simple Ankara dress stood out, but the chairman noticed her discomfort and walked straight over with his usual calm smile. "You look perfect," he said quietly. "Sir, everyone else," she started. He shook his head. "You're the only one here who reminds them why we're doing this." Throughout the evening, he introduced her proudly to other investors and business partners. Each time he said her name, his voice carried respect. "This is a woman whose story started it all," he said to one group. Ifeoma reminded me that empathy builds stronger empires than money ever could. After the dinner, he walked her outside to the terrace overlooking the lagoon. The city lights shimmered on the water, and the breeze was soft. "It feels strange being back here," she said, her voice low. "So many memories, some painful, some beautiful." He nodded. "Pain teaches us things comfort never can." They stood in silence for a moment. Then he said, "I read your speech from the Foundation's launch again last week. You said something that stayed with me. That kindness is a language even the broken can understand. You're right, you know. People remember those who listen." Her eyes met his. "You listened when no one else did." He smiled faintly. Maybe I was the one who needed to hear something that night. The conversation lingered between them, quiet and deep. They didn't need to say more. The night itself seemed to speak, of grace, of gratitude, of something quietly growing between two souls who had both been changed by compassion. When she returned to Enugu the next day, life continued, but something inside her had shifted. She thought often about that terrace, the lights, the water, his words. Yet she pushed his thoughts aside. She had her work, her daughter, and her purpose. That was enough. But destiny had a way of testing contentment. 2 months later, the foundation was invited to partner with a government initiative for women's empowerment. It was a huge opportunity, but it came with scrutiny. Some officials questioned her background. A former maid running a foundation? One bureaucrat said dismissively during a meeting. How can we trust her with large-scale programs? The words cut deep, but Ifeoma kept her composure. "Trust," she said evenly, "is built on consistency. You don't have to believe in my past. Just watch my results." Her calm confidence silenced the room. Later that evening, the chairman called her. "I heard what happened," he said. "I'm proud of you. You handled it with grace." She sighed. "It still hurts, sir. Sometimes it feels like no matter how far I've come, people only see where I started. He paused before replying softly. Then keep climbing until the view from the top becomes undeniable. His words stayed with her. Weeks later, her work paid off. The partnership was approved and new funding flowed in. The foundation expanded to 3 states, with Ifeoma overseeing all operations. News channels began covering their impact. Her name appeared in headlines again, but this time not for pity, for inspiration. Still, she remained humble. She spent her weekends at the local church helping organize donations, and she never missed Chidinma's school events. One Saturday morning, while preparing breakfast, her daughter looked up and said, "Mama, when I grow up, I want to help people too." Ifeoma smiled softly. "Then you already understand what life is about." As the months rolled by, her relationship with the chairman grew deeper, not romantic, but profoundly personal. They spoke often about work, family, faith, and the meaning of success. He had become something like a mentor, though both knew it was more than that. One evening, after a long day of fieldwork, she received a text from him. "Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if I hadn't walked into that hallway that night?" She read it twice before replying. "Maybe we would both still be asleep. You in comfort, me in struggle, but now we're both awake." He didn't respond immediately, but she knew he was smiling wherever he was. That night, as she lay beside her sleeping daughter, she whispered another prayer, not of need this time, but gratitude. "Thank you, Lord, for letting me be seen, for teaching me that sometimes the smallest acts create the biggest ripples." The next morning, she received a call that left her breathless. The foundation had been nominated for a National Humanitarian Award. When she told her mother, the older woman danced in the yard, laughing like a girl. "My daughter, who would have believed this?" From washing other people's floors to standing on stages of honor. On the day of the ceremony in Abuja, she stood under the bright stage lights as the announcer read her name. The applause thundered through the hall. She walked to the podium slowly, her mind flashing back to that first whisper in the dark mansion hallway. "I just want to be with my daughter on Christmas." She smiled through tears. "This award," she began, "is not mine alone. It belongs to every mother who's ever felt unseen. It belongs to the people who listened when others turned away. It belongs to the broken who refused to stop believing in light." In the front row, she saw the chairman watching with quiet pride, his eyes shining. After the ceremony, he approached her. "You've come so far, Ifeoma," he said softly. "So have you," she replied. "We both found what we were missing, purpose." He nodded. Maybe that's what Christmas really meant that night. Not just reunion, but redemption. They stood together as cameras flashed, but neither noticed. The noise faded around them, replaced by the calm understanding that their lives had forever changed each other's. That night, as the plane carried her back to Enugu, Ifeoma looked out the window at the glittering lights below and whispered the words that had started everything. "I just wanted to be with my daughter on Christmas." Then she smiled, tears glistening. "But you gave me more than that, Lord. You gave me a reason to keep living and a story to help others believe." When the plane touched down, dawn was breaking, soft, pink, and full of promise. The early morning sun broke softly over Enugu, painting the rooftops in shades of gold and orange. A rooster crowed from a nearby compound, and the smell of frying akra drifted through the air. Ifeoma sat by the window, holding a cup of steaming tea, staring at the framed award that now stood on her shelf. The golden plaque caught the morning light, its reflection glimmering across the wall like a quiet miracle. Her mother's voice came from the kitchen. "You've been sitting there since dawn. Drink your tea before it gets cold." Ifeoma smiled faintly. "Mama, do you ever think about how far we've come?" The older woman appeared at the door, wiping her hands on a cloth. "Every day. But I think about how far you'll still go even more." Her words made Ifeoma's heart tighten with humility. "Sometimes I feel unworthy of all this." Her mother chuckled softly. "Grace is never earned, my child. It's given." Later that morning, as she walked Chidinma to school, people waved and greeted her with respect. Some even stopped to shake her hand. "Madam Ifeoma, we saw you on TV." One woman called from her stall. She smiled, embarrassed but grateful. Her daughter grinned proudly. "Mama, you're famous." "Fame means nothing if you stop being kind," Ifeoma replied. "Promise me you'll never forget that." At the foundation office, her day began as usual, with laughter, phone calls, and meetings. The new government partnership was in full swing, and her staff worked tirelessly to train hundreds of women across multiple states. She loved watching them grow. It reminded her of her own journey. Just before noon, Adiz walked into her office holding a sealed envelope. "The chairman's office sent this," she said with a curious smile. Ifeoma opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter. Asterisk, "Dear Ifeoma, there's an upcoming summit in Abuja, a gathering of African philanthropists. I've recommended you as our foundation speaker. Please say yes. Your voice is needed there. CA, asterisk." Her heart raced. Speak at an international summit? Before leaders and dignitaries? The thought terrified her. She looked up at Adiz. "Me? But there will be big people there." Adiz grinned. "And you're one of them now. The chairman wouldn't recommend you if he didn't believe you could do it." That night, she told her mother the news. The older woman's reaction was simple but powerful. "Child, this is your destiny unfolding. Don't shrink from it." 2 weeks later, she found herself standing backstage at a grand conference hall in Abuja, surrounded by powerful voices from across the continent. She could hear applause from the audience as other speakers finished their talks. Her palms were sweaty. The chairman approached quietly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. He wore a sleek navy suit, his calm presence steadying her nerves. "You'll be fine," he said softly. "Just speak your truth." She nodded, taking a deep breath. When her name was announced, the hall erupted in applause. Cameras flashed as she walked to the podium. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. "I never imagined I'd stand here," she began, voice trembling. "A few years ago, I was a maid in Lagos. I worked long hours cleaning floors and folding clothes, whispering prayers no one heard. But one night, someone listened, and that one act of listening changed everything." The audience was silent, hanging on her every word. She spoke about grace, perseverance, and compassion. She spoke about the invisible people, the maids, the traders, the mothers, whose stories were often forgotten. "When we listen to the broken," she said, voice steady now, "we remind them they still matter. And sometimes, that's all it takes to rebuild a life." By the time she finished, the entire hall was on its feet. Applause thundered. Some people wiped tears from their eyes. The chairman stood among them, clapping slowly, pride written all over his face. After the summit, reporters surrounded her. Flashbulbs went off as they asked questions about her story, her foundation, her journey. But in the chaos, her eyes searched only for him. When she found him standing near the exit, she smiled through the noise. He walked toward her slowly, his expression unreadable. "You did it," he said simply. "I was terrified," she admitted. "Courage isn't the absence of fear," he replied. "It's doing it anyway." For a long moment, they stood there in the middle of the bustling hall, two lives that had once existed in separate worlds now tied by destiny. That evening, he invited her and her daughter to dinner before their flight home. Chidinma's eyes sparkled as she met him again. "Your mama's boss," she said excitedly. He laughed warmly. "I think your mama is everyone's boss now." They ate together at a quiet restaurant near the airport. Chidinma told stories about school and made them laugh with innocence. Watching her, the chairman's expression softened. "She's the reason you kept going," he said quietly. "Yes," Ifeoma replied, looking at her daughter with love. She was the whisper I couldn't ignore. After dinner, as they stood outside waiting for their taxi, he said, "You become one of the strongest women I know. I want you to keep mentoring others, not just here, but across Africa." "I will," she said, "as long as God gives me the strength." They shared a quiet handshake, one filled with gratitude and mutual respect. There was something unspoken between them, something that went beyond kindness, beyond history, but neither dared name it. When Ifeoma and her daughter returned to Enugu, she was greeted with cheers at the foundation. Staff and volunteers decorated her office with balloons and a banner that read, "Welcome back, our star." She laughed, embarrassed but touched. The days that followed were busy. Her story spread even further, attracting donors and supporters from abroad. But one evening, as she reviewed reports at her desk, a familiar restlessness stirred inside her. She realized she hadn't heard from the chairman in weeks. Then one night, a message came. "Ifeoma, I've been in the hospital. Nothing serious, just exhaustion. Don't worry. But I've been thinking life's too short to keep gratitude unspoken. You changed mine." Her breath caught. She typed back quickly. "Please take care of yourself, sir. You gave me a chance when no one else did. We both changed each other." A few days later, he called. His voice was softer, slower. "I'm fine now," he said, "but I realized something. Helping others is important, but living truthfully is too. I spent years building wealth and forgot how to build peace. Watching you taught me that success without meaning is empty." Her throat tightened. "I think we both learned that lesson, sir." "Maybe," he said, "but you learned it first." After that call, something shifted between them again, not romantic, but deeply spiritual. It was as though their souls had become mirrors, reflecting each other's growth. Months later, during another foundation outreach, Ifeoma stood on a dusty field in Succa, surrounded by hundreds of women singing and clapping as they received their new business grants. She looked at their faces, hopeful, alive, and felt tears fill her eyes. In that moment, she understood her purpose fully. She wasn't just a woman who had been helped. She was now the helper. The circle had closed beautifully. That evening, as she walked home with her daughter holding her hand, the child asked, "Mama, what's next for us?" Ifeoma smiled, looking at the setting sun. "Whatever God has planned. But whatever it is, we'll face it together." When they reached home, her mother was sitting outside, humming softly, the radio playing Oldham. "You look tired but happy," the old woman said. "I am, Mama," Ifeoma replied, hugging her. "I am." As night settled, she went to her small room, opened her journal, and wrote, "Once, I whispered my pain into an empty hallway. Now I speak hope into rooms full of people. That's the power of being heard." Then she turned off the lamp, closed her eyes, and smiled. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of the future, because she had already seen how even a whisper could change the world. The harmattan breeze had returned to Enugu, crisp and dry, sweeping through the narrow streets lined with mango trees. Children's laughter echoed from schoolyards. Traders shouted over prices, and the world moved with the restless rhythm of life. But inside the small yellow-painted house at the edge of the city, peace ruled the morning. Ifeoma stood by the kitchen window, stirring a pot of steaming porridge. The scent of cinnamon and honey filled the room. Her daughter's laughter drifted from outside, where she kicked a football with neighborhood kids. The sound always warmed her, the kind of laughter that used to belong only to other children, now freely hers to enjoy. "Mama," came Chidinma's voice from outside. The ball went into Mr. Ease's garden again. Ifeoma chuckled. "Then go and ask nicely before you jump the fence." She carried the porridge to the table, glancing at the wall where a framed award and foundation photos hung. Each one told a story, not of luxury, but of lives changed. Faces of women once broken now smiling, standing tall, clothed in dignity. Her mother shuffled in from the veranda, humming. "The news said your foundation will be on radio this evening," she said proudly. "They want to talk about how you turned struggle into blessing." Ifeoma smiled. "It's not just my story, Mama. It's all of ours." The phone rang. She reached for it, expecting a call from Adiz about logistics for the next women's training program. But when she saw the name flashing on the screen, her hand froze. Mr. Chukwudi Okonkwo. Her heartbeat quickened. They hadn't spoken in over a month. The last time, he had sounded weary, fragile, almost haunted. She answered quietly, "Good morning, sir." His voice came through faint but steady. "Ifeoma, I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Never. Sir, how are you feeling?" He paused before replying. "Alive and grateful. I've had time to think. Time to rest. But I wanted to speak with you. I'm coming to Enugu." She straightened. "To Enugu?" "Yes," he said softly. "There's something I need to do, and someone I need to thank properly." The line went silent after that. 3 days later, the black Land Cruiser pulled into her compound. Neighbors peeked curiously from behind their gates, whispering. It wasn't every day a wealthy Lagos businessman came visiting a quiet Enugu home. When he stepped out, he looked different. The gray in his hair had spread, and there was a gentleness in his expression she had never seen before. Gone was the heavy air of power and control. In its place stood a man who had finally found peace. "Mama!" Chidinma shouted, running in from outside. "Someone's here." Ifeoma came out, wiping her hands on her wrapper. When she saw him, her breath caught, not because of surprise, but because of what time had done to soften his face. "Sir," she greeted with a smile. He returned it. "You make Enugu look even brighter than I remember." She laughed softly, leading him to a chair on the veranda. Her mother joined them, offering water and cola nuts. "It's good to see you again," Ifeoma said sincerely. "And you," he replied. "I've been following everything you've accomplished. You turned that whisper into a movement, Ifeoma. You should be proud." "I'm grateful," she said simply. After a moment of silence, he looked at her with eyes full of thought. "I came because I wanted to ask something personal." She looked at him, uncertain. He took a deep breath. "All my life, I thought success meant building walls, protecting what I'd earned. But when I met you, you taught me that the real measure of wealth is how many lives you touch." His gaze softened. "I want to do more. I want to leave a legacy of compassion. I want you to help me build it." She frowned slightly, not understanding. "Sir, what do you mean?" He smiled gently. "I want to expand your foundation. I'll fund it fully, but I want it renamed. The Okonkwo Ifeoma Trust for Women and Children, not because of ego, but because this story belongs to both of us. Without you, I'd still be lost. Without that night, I'd still be blind." For a long moment, she couldn't speak. Emotion swelled in her chest. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he replied quietly. "Not for me. For every woman who once whispered into the dark." Tears welled in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. That evening, the whole compound buzzed with life. Chairs were arranged under a canopy. Neighbors gathered, and a local choir sang softly. It wasn't a formal event, just an impromptu celebration of what kindness could create. As dusk settled, Ifeoma stood beside the chairman while reporters snapped photos. Her daughter clung to her side, beaming with pride. In his speech, he said, "Years ago, a simple whisper changed my life. It reminded me that humanity is the greatest investment. This foundation will ensure that no voice like hers ever goes unheard again." The crowd applauded. Ifeoma's heart swelled with gratitude. Later that night, when everyone had gone and the compound was quiet again, he remained seated outside, staring at the stars. "Do you remember that Christmas Eve?" he asked. "I could never forget it," she said. "You said you just wanted to be with your daughter." He smiled faintly. "And now you have her every day." "Yes," she said softly. "But I also got something I didn't ask for, purpose." He nodded slowly. "Maybe that's the real miracle of life. You pray for one thing, and God gives you something even greater." A faint cough escaped him then, soft but persistent. She frowned. "Are you all right?" He waved it off. "Just fatigue. My doctor says I work too much again." "Then you must rest," she said gently. "You've done enough." He looked at her with a kind of peace she hadn't seen before. "You've already given me rest, Ifeoma." The next morning, he left early. The car disappeared down the red, dusty road, sunlight glinting off its roof. She stood at the gate until it vanished, unaware it would be the last time she saw him alive. A week later, the call came. He had suffered a heart attack in his Lagos home. He was gone before help could arrive. Ifeoma sank to her knees as the phone fell from her hand. Her mother rushed to her side, holding her as sobs racked her body. "He's gone, Mama, he's gone." For days, Lagos newspapers carried his photo. Billionaire philanthropist and industrialist dies at 49. They spoke of his wealth, his empire, his influence. But none of them knew about the man who had stood quietly on a poor woman's veranda, making promises of hope. Weeks later, a letter arrived, sealed, written in his handwriting. Asterisk, if you're reading this, it means my time has ended, but my gratitude hasn't. You gave me something money could never buy. Humanity, the trust is fully yours to run. Continue the work. Build others. Tell our story if it helps someone believe again. And when you miss me, don't look to the past. Look around. In every smile you create, I'll still be there. C.A. Okonkwo asterisk. She wept as she read it, clutching the paper to her chest. Her tears fell on the ink, smudging his name. The months that followed were a blur of both grief and growth. The trust expanded into 6 states, opening centers for women and children. She traveled often, speaking about resilience and compassion. Every word she spoke carried a spirit. On the first anniversary of his death, the trust unveiled a statue at the foundation's main office, not of him, but of a mother kneeling to embrace her child. Beneath it, a plaque read, "In memory of one whisper that changed 2 lives, and countless others." That evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Ifeoma and her daughter stood by the statue. Chidimma's small hand found hers. "Mama," she said softly, "you told me prayers can change things." Ifeoma nodded. "They can, my heart. But sometimes it's the people who listen that make the miracle happen." The girl leaned her head against her mother's arm. "Do you miss him?" "Every day," she whispered. "But I'm grateful, too, because he heard me when no one else did. And now the world hears others because of that." They stood in silence as the lights around the statue flickered on, bathing it in golden glow. A gentle wind rustled the trees, as if the universe itself whispered back in gratitude. That night, lying in bed, Ifeoma picked up her journal one last time. She wrote, asterisk, "I began with nothing but a whisper and a prayer. I end with a legacy of hope. He taught me that compassion never dies, it only multiplies. And if someday another woman whispers in the dark, may someone listen as he once did." Asterisk. She closed the book and turned off the lamp. Her daughter stirred beside her, murmuring in her sleep. Outside the night was still, but inside her heart was full. Because love, she now knew, didn't end when life did. It simply changed form, becoming light for others to follow.